To understand plants, we need to understand photosynthesis, this reaction where plants absorb photons of light. See, light doesn't just come down from the sun in a steady beam. It comes in these little packets called photons. And these photons are captured in the leaf and converted from solar energy into chemical energy, glucose. First step is just photon absorption. There are accessory pigments in the leaf. Okay, I'm not talking about the greens. I'm talking about the other pigments, and they're going to capture reds, blues, and violet wavelengths. You see, plants don't use all of these. They don't use the yellow and the green. They don't, but they use a lot of red, blue, and violet. They take those different wavelengths, reds, orange, yellow, violets, and they're going to convert those into an energy that's passed on to the chlorophyll. So carotene, xanthophyll, other accessory pigments are going to pass on whatever they captured to the chlorophyll. The chlorophyll is green, and that's what makes a plant green, except when there's dim light in the fall, then the chlorophyll becomes inactive and we see the accessory pigments that are always there, but they're covered up by the green. Photolysis is the second step. Lysis means to split. Here what's happening is that photon, as it goes through the leaf, it's going to split water. And H2O is split into two free hydrogens and oxygen. And that's why we sing in the shower, by the way. We're splitting water. The shower is splitting water. Lots of oxygen. Makes us feel good. And same with the plants. They're going to use that oxygen. Here's a long word, photophosphorylation. Here's the atom to the right, and the electrons in the outer orbital, they're charged by that photon of energy that they absorb. And by absorbing it, they're going to bump electrons to a higher state. So what's happening, this is what's happening at the atomic level within the leaf. Now we can't see this, but scientists have demonstrated that it likely happens this way. Now the electron, as it returns, because what comes up must come down, as the electron returns to its former state, it's going to give off a bond that holds a phosphate. So we now have 3 phosphates. And you might say, well, who cares? Phosphate, I don't even know what that is. Well, it's kind of important because this is what fuels our body too, ATP. Adenosine triphosphate, 3 phosphates. And so now we have the Calvin-Benson cycle. Here is where we're going to use that ATP because we want to make glucose. We can't just have this electric energy, ATP, coursing through the plant all the time because it needs to store some of it for later. So carbon, hydrogen, oxygen are bonded into a 6-carbon sugar called glucose. ATP is oxidized. That means it gives up one of its phosphate bonds. When this happens, we have ADP. Now again, you might think, well, ATP, ADP, who cares? But think of it like energy transport. ATP has energy. When it bonds sugar together, it's going to give up energy, become ADP, low energy. And now we're going to get some sunlight. It's going to charge that ADP back up to ATP and high energy. And then we make another bond. And so bond by bond, that's how sugar is made. Here's a nice summary. Photon coming down, hits the atom. ADP is charged so that a bond forms with phosphate. And now we have ATP. ATP is used to bond together sugar in the Calvin-Benson cycle. Does that, it becomes E. And on to top-down dynamics. This is a concept where predators regulate the amount of biomass in the ecosystem. Okay, if you look to the left, you see this pyramid. And the predators are the least abundant. I think most of us know this. Herbivores more abundant. Plants the most abundant. And the greatest biomass. Biomass just means the amount of weight. But if you remove the predators, then the herbivores become really abundant and they start to destroy plants. And so this top-down dynamics is, even though predators are rare, they're very important. Plant defense. Plants often defend themselves with chemicals or structural features like thorns, and these are quite effective if you've ever been snagged by a thorn. Interesting, when a plant is eaten, then the thorns grow longer, and so then they're ready for the next attack. It's like preparing for battle every time they get eaten. Chemical toxins are stored in the structure called vacuole. That's why we don't like to eat old lettuce or old vegetables sometimes, because more and more toxins are dumped in the vacuole and it starts tasting bitter. Tannins, we see those in oaks, and they're used, well, we use tannin, we tan leather because it binds to digestive enzymes, and any animal that tries to eat like a tanned leather belt or shoes, they're going to get diarrhea, because that's what tannin does. The milkweed trigger a vomiting reflex in the brain. There are some insects, such as the monarch, that can eat this toxin, and so if any animal tries to eat a monarch, you're gonna throw up, and then you'll never eat another monarch, most likely. Alkaloids and Jimson weed. This is a plant we see along roadsides. Sometimes people use it to get high, but it can cause confusion, blindness, and death. So don't go for this one, even though there's some books that say it's okay to eat or smoke or the roots, whatever. No. Symbionts. The symbiont means something that lives together with it. An ant, for example, can live inside a swollen gall, and when something comes along and starts to eat that plant, the ants come out and start to sting the herbivore. So even the mighty rhino can be stopped by these little biting, vicious symbionts. They're just ants. Vascular plants. Vascular means there's an internal system, transports fluids. Phloem moves sugars from the leaves that we just talked about, being made through photosynthesis, and then they're going to transport it down through the xylem. So phloem flows down here, and xylem here, water and minerals upwards. Okay, so leaves, photons hitting the leaves, and we're going to turn those minerals, water, and so forth into glucose. It's made of xylem, so we look at the center part, that's the part that distributes water through the plant. That is what we call wood, it's xylem. Early wood forms in the spring when there's lots of water and nutrients, so you have these big wide rings. And then late wood is a dark band, and so this is how you can tell how old the tree was, because each dark ring, I just call those like summertime. 1 summer, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 summers. The tree's not as old as it looks. Pterophytes, kind of a weird word. Ptero meaning hand or finger. Phyte means plant. These are primitive roots plants. We think of the ferns. They produce a sporangium. So if you're you don't see these things usually. They're very small. But this gametophyte, it's a gamete. That's a plant. It develops after fertilization into a fern, and then it forms these sporangia that are going to release spores, and the spores land on something moist, and we get a fern plant, and there's a life cycle. So no flowers on ferns. Sometimes you see these people selling a fern, but if it has a flower, it's definitely not a fern. Gymno, naked seed plants. So we think of the pines. These seeds are not in a protective seed coat. So think of something like a corn. Corn is in a seed coat, but these pine seeds are not. They have wing-like, well, the pollen grains have wing-like extensions, and so they are wind pollinated. You don't see bees or hummingbirds visiting a pine tree. They just shoot them out like a shotgun, lots of them, and hope they land at a female cone. Angiosperm, angio are the flowering plants, and this is the most widespread group of plants. The petals, they're not for us, okay? It's not for Valentine's Day. Their color is shaped to attract pollinators. So, like butterflies like oranges, and bees like violets, hummingbirds reds, and so forth. Stamens, if you look at the stamen, it has an anther. That is where the male part is. It produces pollen. and the carpel down here produces eggs. And the pollinator is going to transport pollen to related plants. And so it's kind of neat. Like one type of bee visits this kind of flower, and so then that bee is going to go to another flower that's just like this. So you don't have so much randomness. It's a really pretty selective process that flowers have for preventing some pollinators from getting access and then allowing others. Pretty crazy, huh? Hope you enjoyed it. Oh my gosh. Okay.